just engage in professional activities, engage in the rental of goods even, and they have this preferential tax regime which charges them income from 1% up to 2.5% tax income.
Hello everyone. And today our topic is dissolving misconceptions about Mexico, legal and lifestyle aspects. And for introduction, I can tell you that I'm Emily Braun, owner of International Lifestyle Consulting, and myself, expat in Mexico. And I spend my time between Mexico and my home in Toronto for the business purposes. And today with me is one of the SEOs owners of Outbound Mexico legal company, Leon. And I have pleasure to introduce this bright person. Miguel, please tell a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Emily. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to your audience and be collaborating with you in this type of events. Very nice to meet you, everyone. My name, as Emily said, is Miguel Leon. I am a lawyer here in Mexico City. I specialize in international law regarding Mexico. More in the specific, I specialize in immigration law and international taxes, as well as civil law and commercial law here in Mexico. As Emily said, I am the partner and co founder of Outbound Mexico. And Outbound Mexico is a recently launched company which provides with legal services for foreigners in Mexico. Its main goal is to make relocation to Mexico in the legal field as seamless and smooth as possible. Our main focus is in providing with expats and people not from Mexico with cost efficient and time efficient and simple ways in which they can understand law and they can successfully relocate to Mexico while delving easily into the Mexican law basically. That's what we do. My original background is in corporate law. I was a few years during my career during corporate law. After that, I decided to make a, you know, dive into the entrepreneurial lifestyle and decided to found Outbound Mexico with, other partners of my university. I studied at ITAM, which is a pretty renowned law school here in Mexico, university. And yes, so the past two couple of years, I've been delving into the international characteristics of relocating to Mexico in the legal field, right? And that's what our main focus is. We provide with comprehensive services for foreigners. For instance, we just recently launched a membership program in which we, with a monthly flat fee, we provide a sort of a legal insurance to our clients. Basically, consultation of any sorts regarding property rental, property lease, property attainment, like purchasing property, right? Acquiring it, investing in Mexico, immigration, taxes, all of the legal questions a foreigner may have while residing in Mexico, even if it's for a temporal time. We are here to help them and most of all to prevent legal issues or fraud or generally problems with their time and money here. So yes, that's what we are specialized in. We're passionate about it. We are young, and we are, as I said, efficiently and technology oriented.
Thank you. A really great introduction. But I was trying and I put on a screen actually a presentation of your new membership program. And I was personally very excited to see this program coming, especially to expat, because I'm expat myself. I had a multi-migrational experience in the past, living in different countries, and I know how hard it is for newcomers to adjust to new country, to new culture, to new law, but even with a kind of knowledge of law, like layperson cannot know, all these intricacies. There is a lot of questions that it's very important to discuss, to ask, to review documents. And I wish like somebody in my past, or who I was working with, or around me, was offering such a program. And I understand that it's actually new concept. I believe nobody offered such a thing before. And when I was trying to bring awareness about your product, I would say, about your offer, comprehensive legal shield, some people in Facebook expat groups and communities, they couldn't believe, like, oh, we never heard about it. It cannot be real. Who are these guys? How long they are in a business? I believe it's all legitimate questions because people are cautious these days. Probably they've had a negative experience already, and they are afraid to be, involved with something new. And it's really a new concept. And what I was sharing as well, and please tell me a little bit more about it, is that you are not alone, because to cover all these different legal areas and business directions, and telling the truth, I think that your offer is too large, like unlimited calls,
Yeah.
documentation, and all this. It's kind of hard to believe, too good to be true. And I was explaining that you are a team of the like friends, lawyers, uh, partners who are trying cover expat, legal issues from different sides. Because even for me, it was strange how you can do all this what you're offering. Can you tell a little bit
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, it's not just me and my co-founder, right? We
Yeah.
have actually four associates with us, and we have senior legal counsels who are expert of many, many years. Like our chief legal counsel has, our senior legal counsel, sorry, has around 50 plus years of experience in the legal field. So, what I would say is that these concerns are valid because at the end of the day, we are innovating in the legal field in Mexico. This has never been done exactly in this type of model before in Mexico. I believe in parts of the USA and Europe, they have like a subscription model of some sort, like a legal shield. But in Mexico, it's a new thing, right? So I will say that right off the bat, we are a team of agents, and obviously, we will not accept new subscriptions until we know that our services are going to be capable of supporting more, right? It's a structure that needs to grow if our membership program explodes and there's a lot of new members, right? We will need to plan ahead of that. So we will never accept new memberships if we know our current team is not going to be able to attend to all the consultations. And obviously, for instance, we the time is limited, right? The resources are limited. So obviously, unlimited consultation is like an advertisement, but obviously we will need to see the our client's schedule, our client's plans and objectives, and plan in that sense, right? It wouldn't be reasonable for a client to have 8 hour consultation calls for one day, right? So obviously it is not freely unlimited, but the aspect that is really unlimited is that we are not going to charge you more than just a flat fee monthly, and it's up to you how much you use our services, right? It is up to you how much you, let's say, take advantage of this model, right?
So I believe people will not abuse your
Yeah,
time and will not take advantage. And but I would like to outline it really kind and large offer. And obviously it would be changed. I mean, some condition would be changed along the road. What I like your entrepreneurial spirit. I like actually startups. That's why I'm in Mexico. That's why I'm working with young, ambitious Mexicans, and I'm looking for other new ideas and projects because I think it's really what will help Mexico go forward and us expats to be happy and flourish in a new country. Because again, going back to our title, There's a lot of misconception about Mexico. And kind of, I am not naive, and I will not say that there is no crime in Mexico, there is no corruption in Mexico. Oh, all is okay and rosy. No, there are areas where the crime is unfortunately rising, and it's along the border with United States. But Mexico is a big, I would say even huge country by territory, with a really different, with variety of different climate zone, geographic zone, which is not the same, cultural differences, and even differences between economical development of different states. Again, it's a 31 state now, yes, less one. And there are differences. And actually, it's what interesting for me personally. That's why every year I'm trying to have this discovery tour going from state to state to actually observe and notice the differences between states. And from my perspective as owner of international lifestyle consulting, I'm actually looking how people, local people, and expats living in a different states, adjusting to the different life condition. Because again, climate is different, and many people, I would say, north of Mexico, have idea about Mexico. It's like only this resort, humid, hot, small cities offering actually very appealing lifestyle. But what I would like to outline, there are the different areas. For example, I like more like cool, moderate climate. So I prefer colonial cities of the central Mexico, Bahia area, because for me and people like me, it's all for different lifestyle, different cultural ambience, different climate, like what I'm looking for. And I'm helping baby boomers, and I understand what is important for baby boomers: medical system, in this or other city or place, infrastructure development, connection between city, development, city, state, and actually even like a political climate maybe in this or other state, because I understand it's all influence, life of people living in this state. And I'm spreading my impressions and my story about Mexico. And it's not only about differences in climate, it's a differences in, again, I would like to outline cultural ambience. People who are living in this or other states, there are more industrial states like Nuevo Leon, Querétaro, even Guadalajara, and they catering to one type of people. And I would advise actually digital nomads or people, remote workers, or actually people who are looking for the work in these like industrial specific areas, not now to speak about it, to consider these states. And there are another states which are better matching a lifestyle of retirees or digital nomads. Okay, all the details I can share in my consultation and webinars that will be coming soon. But I will ask Miguel, you to share your thoughts and observation about misconception about legal system in Mexico.
Well, I think there's two primary misconceptions about Mexican legal system. One of which is that it is easy, right? Like people who just hear of Mexico, it's like, oh, you just pay this government fee and it's so easy. Like you can. It's very expat friendly, like 100%. Like you just pay a fee and you're set up, right? It's just a simple process as long as you have the means and to investing into the country. However, Mexican bureaucracy is big, right? Mexican bureaucracy is complicated, and there's a lot of discretionary decisions with the government officials, right? So even as you clearly said, Emily, knowing the law, even as an expat or having a legal advice, sometimes is not enough because it's a lot based on customs, right? And discretionary decisions of officials. So for instance, if you would like to apply for a Mexican residency in a consulate abroad, you'll have to know how each consulate operates, because some consulates ask for different kind of requirements, and that's not something that is in the law. That is something that is on the experience day to day, people that have been through the process before, attorneys that have dealt with those cases before. So it's not as easy as it may seem, right? Just like, oh, pay $51 for your immigration fee and you're set up. Sometimes it's more complicated at that, unfortunately. Another, let's say, legal misconception about Mexico is that maybe people think that all of Mexico, the law applies the same and the legal system is the same. However, as in the US, for instance, we have a federal type of law, and we have also local types of law.
Like in
So,
Canada as well. Yeah, there is a
okay,
difference. Yeah.
yeah. So, but the thing is that some misconceptions may arise. For instance, if an enterprise or an investor is seeking to invest in a project, let's say in a tourism sector in Mexico, and they have the permission from the federal government, and they think that that was the most essential part, that they are all set. However, the local sector of the local regulations, and even the smaller sectors like the municipalities, they ask for different kind of requirements, and maybe your investment on your plan will not be fully executable because you're not compliant with local regulations and municipality regulations. So that's another thing that I've seen with my own eyes happen, right? With large investment projects. It's not just federal government that needs to be on your side, but also the local governments, right? And it's very important. And yes, and also with the localities, again, this is the same. It's a lot based on customs, on discretionary decisions from the government officials. So you need to have you need to know someone that has been personally has dealt with this type of procedures themselves, to provide you with better insight and personal experience. That's how law works here in Mexico. Some people tell you something works, but another consultant will tell you does not work. But it really depends on on case basis and the type of procedure you want to apply to. And yes, so that is something that maybe some foreigners, maybe or some expats may be surprised by or impatient, right? But in Mexico, you need to be patient with the government. You need to be a bit laid back. That's how in Mexico we operate. Be ready to have long lines while doing an application, and don't like be patient, because it may not be able to work in the first time if you're trying to make it on your own, right? So just understand that that's how the Mexican system works, and I understand United States and Canada is way more efficient than our legal system.
What I understood, that the best way to navigate in all the situation, to have kind of private lawyers like you guys,
Yeah,
because you never know. And even as you mentioned, in different states, and you covering kind of expats in different states of Mexico, there is local law, by the way, exactly like in United States and Canada. There is federal law, state or provincial law, and local municipal law,
yeah,
and different questions can be resolved on the different level, depends what kind of question it is and what kind of project involved, if we are speaking about the business or real estate, we would say. Yes.
yeah,
And there's a lot of changes, and only actually legal professionals who are really up to date with all what has happened can navigate. And it take time even from legal professional to find, every time some kind of unique, I would say, custom approach to the different problems. And I found that work with you guys, and I already shared that I know you for a couple of months already, and I selected Outbound Mexico to be my partners. Yes, it's not secret, because I was looking as the owner of International Lifestyle Consulting, and myself like business owner, solopreneur. I was looking to the different legal professionals to advise me on this other, or maybe in the future some possible different issue, but because we don't know what is coming. And I found that here in one place, I found the people, the team who really would help me if they don't know at the moment. And you cannot know all in a moment, but you can do research, you can find a way. It's what I believe it's really a professional approach. And if people were asking me, like, how long they in the business, how old are they, I was like, okay, come in, look, try. The age, young age, for me, it's a benefit. It's not, it just proves that people are fresh in knowledge, really ambitious, and they looking for the ways to help. And like negative experience, past experience from other lawyers that might happen should not kind of overshadow new possible experience and work with a new lawyer. About crime in Mexico. And again, crime statistic about crime in Mexico and like different cases, sometimes really gruesome. Like, I will not say, appearing in newspapers of United States, Canada, and others, like immediately after they happened, unfortunately. Sometimes without the details, like what happened, only if expats or say Americans and Canadians in this regards were involved. And
Yeah.
obviously it's not good. But what I found sometimes when I was trying to dig, many of these people who were wounded or even killed were actually involved in drug trafficking or maybe in some other, I would say, illegal activities or risky activities in Mexico. Yes, there is cartel, and there is, in my view, increase of cartel activity, especially on the border with United States. But unfortunately, it's not only problem of Mexico. Actually, I believe Mexicans, real kind of people of Mexico, paying the price themselves for all these activities happening on the American borders, and refugee, which is coming now, unfortunately, for a long time already through Mexico, causing a lot of problem for Mexicans and help cartel to flourish, I would say. But all this flow of people, drugs, and guns, and unfortunately child and people trafficking going up north to United States, in Canada even.
Yeah.
And with all this, please tell me now your view on crime situation in Mexico as of 2023.
Yes. So I think there's two type of crimes, right, in Mexico, like that people, citizens have to look out for. One, which is the organized crime, cartel and gang activity. And the second type of crime is individual crime, more random, like, oh, they stole my purse, they stole my car, they stole my phone on the public system, the public transportation system, for instance, right? And I think regarding the first type of crime, of criminal activity, as you said, Emily, it is a complex problem which is primarily influenced by the export of drugs. That's their business, and that's the why a lot of billions and billions of dollars are coming into Mexico and are incentivizing violence between gang members and cartels. So understanding these factors of this phenomenon, we are able to understand that cartel violence and gang violence is directed between these gangs, between the cartels, right? The problem comes with collateral damage,
Yeah,
or let's say,
accidental death of
accidental, yeah, because of
bystander,
course the cartels, it's one of their most,
highly organized.
yeah, no, yeah, but it's one of their priorities not to attack innocent civilians and not to have a bad public image. Moreover, their own clients in tourist areas, they don't want to bother them a bit. Like, they want them to stick being their clients. They want the market, etc. It's their consumers, so it's on the last of their priorities to hurt them in any way, right? For them to lose clients. So understanding this scenario, the best way for an expat to avoid being engaged in collateral or misfortunes is first of all not engage, right, in suspicious like activities. Don't go where you know people buy and sell drugs. Don't consume drugs yourself. Don't go to this. Don't engage, right, with these people in the first place. And that's like the rule number one, right? In the tourist areas, even in the resort or whatever, just don't engage with people trying to sell you something, right? Or even your friends. So that would be my first advice. And in the second advice, with the more casual type of crime, just individual robbers, random robbers, I think it's the same with all the big cities. For instance, there's going to be neighborhoods where you have to be more cautious, right? It's not in Mexico City, for instance. It's not the same to be walking with your dog in Roma or Condesa, right? Or even Polanco, which has one of the highest rates of policemen in the whole country, and security, than to go to Iztapalapa with the same type of awareness for the situation. So I think it's the more general tips for big cities and big places. Yeah,
As I say, do your homework. And even in my articles, I put in what areas you can go at night if you like nightlife, in what area you should be cautious or actually not to go. Be
yeah,
aware.
yeah, exactly. That's what I would say. That and and again, like, we as human beings have this bias, this risk aversion, right? We see in the news that one American citizen or American national was hurt, or fortunately was murdered, or something along the lines. However, we need to also understand that, for instance, in Cancun, around 1.6 million tourists went last year, and one American citizen, for instance, was hurt, right? Let's say. So, one in 1.6 million tourists is really a very low percentage, right? However, there's always this risk aversion in our heads that even the slightest risks is averse to us, right? So to put things into perspective, like that crime rate is extremely low. Like, if you go to Cancun or a resort like that, the probabilities really are extremely low for
And
you to.
I would like to outline, speaking about statistics, that people in United States and Canada somehow forget, some of them, about mass shootings in United States coming from, unfortunately, own citizen, about all these very sad events which are happened in United States and sometimes in Canada now more often. I have not heard about such events in Mexico, other than cartel activity like shooting in a city or shooting in a theater or mass public events. So unfortunately, crime actually is growing in Western countries by different reasons, and comparing apple to apple, and I don't have now statistics, but there is statistics that sometimes from official sources that I'm following, what I found that unfortunately crime level in United States in some city is really close or even up to Mexican cities, and some Canadian cities, which is a big pain for us because in Canada it was not such a situation even 5 years ago. It's going really up. So again, what I am advising, and why I am following, all the statistics, because I advise people like retirees specifically, my clients, and remote workers with families to move or to live or to consider the safest areas in Mexico. Because again, as in our cities, there is a good areas where people are living and going at night, walking around, and there is some areas in Toronto even. I'm sarcastic, where it's better not to be even during the day because there is the shootings now. So you need to do homework, and if you don't know, ask professionals, people who are aware of situation like me or like Miguel, only if there is a legal related questions. And the next question, just to diversify it, about taxation system. I just put like Hacienda, because I believe, and even me, like some people think, okay, kind of, there is no problem. I'm speaking about expats now. We are expats and we kind of not involved, but I believe we need to know rules of each country we are living in. And it takes time. I understand it takes time, and specifically in Mexico. And from other even kind of big promoters of relocation industry, I would like not to name kind of known speaking head on some big channels. They're speaking about how awful is Mexican taxation system, how it's very expensive to have a business in Mexico and stuff like that. So what you would say in this regard?
I would say it purely depends on your type of taxation back home, right? That's like the first step you need to know. For instance, if you're an American citizen, America, I think, is the only country that actually taxes its citizens, sorry, based on pure having just the American passport, right?
Yes.
Being an American citizen. So they tax globally, regardless of their residency. They'll tax. So I'd say right off the bat, if you are an American citizen, yes, it will be expensive for you to having business and having formally established business in other countries, because you will be taxed not only by the country that you invested in, but also by your home country. So that's obviously not ideal in terms of taxes, because that is where taxation treaties come into play, right? Obviously, the authorities and the OECD knows that double taxation is not good for the economy, right? Who wants to be double taxed? And and that's where the tax treaties come into play. However, it's sometimes, even with a tax convention between two countries, it may not be ideal in terms of taxes if you're American citizen. So that's the first consideration. The second one is that Mexico gives a lot of benefits for small taxpayers and for business starters or entrepreneurs. Why? Because there's this regime that actually came out into the year 2022, just a year ago. It's called a tax regime. It's called Reciclo, which gives all sorts of tax advantages to all citizens or tax residents of Mexico that engage in professional activities, are not shareholders per se of an LLC or something, just engage in professional activities, engage in the rental of goods, even, and they have this preferential tax regime which charges them income from 1% up to 2.5% tax income. So that's extremely low. And the only consideration with this tax regime is that you're not able to deduct, if you're not an LLC, so you're just an individual taxation, you're not able to deduct some taxes based on your
Expenses.
expenses, right?
Yeah, but
Based on
it's
your
nothing to deduct from. 2%.
yeah.
Like what is
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Especially if you have an online business, right? What are
Yeah.
you going to deduct? Like the internet bill, right? So it's not, especially for online businesses or online entrepreneurs or professional services providers, that this is a great option, right?
Obviously, I didn't know. It's a great news because I don't know how many from expats are already engaging in startups and small business development activities in Mexico. Maybe because they don't know about it. I believe this information might kind of inspire some people really, rather than. And we know that just salaries in Mexico not very high, I would
Yeah,
say. But if you have some idea, some spirit, entrepreneurial spirit, I believe, and maybe taking advice from you guys how
of course.
better to set up the company and have some strategy, it's a great opportunity. I even didn't know, like, don't know what other countries are offering such a good, I mean, low taxation level for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, yeah, this is something that is very attractive to entrepreneurs, because like the income gap, the income threshold in order to apply for this regime is not earning more, if you're an individual, not earning more than $200,000 a year. So if you earn less than $200,000 a year, US dollars, you're able to apply to this regime, right?
Mexico, I think $200,000. It's a really high threshold, specifically for startup for many years till you
Yeah,
will get to the level, and it's applicable to expats as well.
this is a very interesting question. So that's the other consideration that every expat needs to know about this regime. In order to apply to this regime, you need to cease being a foreign tax resident. So if you are a Canada citizen and you want to apply to this regime, you have to cease being a tax resident in Canada. So I
Meaning
know,
you need to live more than 6 months in Mexico, correct?
yes, yeah, in Canadian law, you need to cease being a tax resident under Canadian law in order to apply
It's
for
more
this regime.
complicated. You need to
Yeah,
cease all your ties with the country, but it's a
yeah. I mean,
process.
you can be a Canadian citizen, but you have to cease being a Canadian tax resident. For Americans, that they're always a tax resident. They always
Yes,
tax payers.
but
Yeah,
it's in any country, in any other countries, they have this. Please, you mentioned double taxation treaties, and I know
yeah.
that they exist between Mexico and United States and Mexico and Canada. And I believe that these treaties are helping kind of to lower the tax burden. Yes.
Yes, yes. For instance, earnings from credit loans, earnings from real estate investments, earnings from different types of investments, they tend to usually be lower under the tax treaties than under Mexican regulation. So you could apply for this tax benefit under the convention. For instance, if Mexico regulates 25% tax for real estate income, capital gains from selling a house here in Mexico, and the treaty says 15%, you are able to apply what the treaty says. So you're able to save 10% of taxes, right? Through this operation, for instance. So it's a great option to have knowledge of the tax treaties and to know how to apply them.
There is a difference between temporary residents and permanent residents.
For tax
Resident in this regard.
for tax purposes, it's not the immigration status per se. It's more the center of vital interest, this is called. So, in whichever place you have more than 50% of your income, in whichever place you have a permanent residence, in whichever place you have a habitual residence, that's the place that the treaty is going to consider you a taxpayer of, right? These are like the tiebreaker rules. So it's not specifically being a temporary or permanent resident, because these types of Mexican immigration residencies allow you to come in and out of the country freely, right? So it's up to you whether you apply into a different tax resident tiebreaker rules. It's up to you whether you are living in Canada or the USA or in Mexico most of the time, where you have most of your income coming from, and it's not based just on immigration status alone.
Why I was asking this question, because I remember like discussion between experts about actually selling the property in Mexico, being temporary resident or permanent resident, because I think there is different taxes here in this particular scenario. Uh,
Not particularly. It is a difference whether you are a tax resident or not, right? It's not just purely based on your immigration status. Mexican law differs in terms of taxes based on your residence, right? If you're a tax resident here or not.
Last year, I think, if I'm correct,
Yeah.
Mexican government kind of demand, or would say, all permanent residents and temporary residents to get taxation numbers, it RFS number. Yes,
Yeah. So the permanent residents, or all the residents of
all
Mexico, even the
residents.
temporary ones, have a corp, which is
Cool.
CURP, yeah, CURP, which is the citizen identification number, similar to social security number, right? But with the temporary residents, this number is temporal, right? With the permanent residents, this number is permanent, right? And the RFC is automatically derived from the CURP. right? So if you are a permanent resident, your taxpayer ID, your RFC, that's what it's called. It's going to
Got
be
it.
automatically derived from it, and it's going to be the same taxpayer ID forever because you're a permanent resident. So yes, that is a difference between temporary resident and permanent resident. However, in Mexico, in order to be formally registered in the taxpayer registry and the taxation system, you need to be formally registered in the taxpayer ID. That's not, and that it's usually done by you personally. It's not common for you to be registered without even knowing it, right? Either you have worked in Mexico, either some bank has asked for this taxpayer
Yep.
ID before and you apply for it, but it's not standard practice, or it's not even, I think, possible for you to have an RFC involuntarily completely without your knowledge, right?
No, no,
uh,
but you need to have it because now banks are asking for it
yeah,
when you sell or buy property. I understand
yeah,
it's
yeah,
one of the first questions. So it's became kind of a necessity to
yeah.
have this number.
Yes,
Mm.
you will eventually get it if you plan to engage in economic activities here.
Okay, thank you. And maybe related question, it's what I was thinking yesterday about what in case employee, I mean, living in Mexico, considered to be non-resident for Mexico tax purposes.
Okay.
Meaning, I understand like me who living part-time in Canada in another country or online entrepreneur. I don't know what in this
Yeah.
case because we live in one country but our business is online and clients are coming from different countries.
Yeah, so this is a great question. I really like it because this is the new paradigm with the online and remote work, right?
Yeah,
This is great. So
exactly.
in Mexico, you need to pay taxes based on three main hypotheses or conditions, right? There's three of them. So if you are a Mexican resident, I'll get into what that means in a bit. You need to
Mhm.
pay taxes. If you acquire income from Mexican sourced wealth, I'll get to what that means in a bit as well. You need to pay taxes.
Sure.
Or if you have a permanent establishment here in Mexico as an expat, like as a foreigner entity, as a foreign entity, if you have a permanent establishment in Mexico, you need to pay taxes. So, what does these three categories mean? Apart from the specific case of the remote worker, right? You're a remote worker and you need to figure out in which of these three um,
Categories.
categories you fit and if you need to pay taxes of or not, basically. So, in the first category, if you're a Mexican resident or not, this is determined. The rule of thumb, the general rule of thumb, is whether you have a whether is your residence, your permanent residence situated in Mexico. So if you have a permanent residence, you live permanently in Mexico, you will need to pay taxes, right? However, this is ambiguous because global citizens, unlike remote workers, digital nomads, they're citizens of the world. So, what exactly does it mean to have a permanent residence in Mexico? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? Like, who knows? However,
You should have card. Actually, you cannot
yeah,
live more than 6 months as a tourist.
yeah,
And it's
exactly, exactly. So, for instance, there's this in the immigration side of things. As a tourist, you're not allowed to live more than 6 months. So, a queue for you to maybe consider if you are a permanent resident of Mexico is that whether you live or have lived for more than 6 months here, right? In a fixed way. But the truth is, and in all honesty, is that these laws were not designed to conceive this new online remote phenomena, right? That's the truth. So let's move now to the second category, whether you earn income from Mexican source wealth. So, as an online worker, is your employer Mexican? Are your clients Mexican? If it's yes to these questions, then you are considered a tax resident for tax purposes. You need to pay taxes in Mexico. If the answer is not, my employer is from the US or from other country that is
I
not
am
Mexico.
self-employed. I am self-employed, for example.
Okay, if you are, for instance, if you're self-employed, are your clients Mexican? So regarding your Mexican clients, you will need to pay taxes for your Mexican clients. Right? That's an obligation. For example, if you're self-employed, like a typical case, artists, right?
Yeah,
Artists that come to Mexico and perform. Their clients, if they come to Mexico and perform here, their clients are Mexican,
yeah.
basically. They're earning income from Mexican source wealth, so they need to pay taxes. That's the same with the freelancers, right? If your clients are Mexican, you have to pay taxes regarding your Mexican clients. Not all clients, just the Mexican
Yeah.
clients, right? And the third one is if you have a permanent establishment here, and that is more the case for entities, for corporations, companies, right? Legal entities. If a legal entity comes in Mexico and does business here, conducts its operations here, it will be considered a tax resident if it has a fixed place, like an office or a fixed person, which engages in the entity's business model or business activities of this entity in Mexico in a fixed place, right? For instance, if the DHL, right, has an office, a permanent fixed office here, and it conducts its business through these offices, then it'll be considered a taxpayer for the income generated in Mexico, right? For its income. And so no matter that it doesn't matter that the DHL is a German company, it will pay taxes because it has fixed offices here in Mexico.
Okay, great. I learn a lot, and I believe listeners get valuable examples and explanation. Obviously, we cannot touch and shouldn't touch all. For this purpose, there is a membership program of Outbound Mexico to
Yeah.
be engaged, because there are and would be many different questions, and I believe to get even clarification of how correctly approach like personal matters or business matters in Mexico, it's better to have legal support, I would say.
Yeah.
And the last questions I've had, like what if exist the investment opportunities for retirees, I mean expat retirees in Mexico?
Right. So I was actually talking to a financial broker in Mexico from a company called Tin, which is a UK based financial company and institution, sorry, financial institution. And there's a lot of options. I think what most of my clients have been looking out for is diversifying their income, because as retirees, you don't want, to put your all of your eggs in one basket, right? So I think it is important that if you are a retiree in Mexico, you look to diversify your income. For instance, you can invest in government issued bonds, in Mexican issued government bonds, which are called CETES. These are good because they have a bit of a higher, they're like on the 10% or a bit above 10% return on the
Really?
yearly return. Yeah.
I've never heard about such a return lately from any government bonds.
Yeah, Mexican bonds are high because the central bank, the central bank rates are high, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
thus, giving your money to this central bank of the Mexican government right now, it's a good option. But of course, that's only a few options, right? You could also invest in fideicomiso, which is like bank trusts, and fideicomisos, for example, that engage in real estate, which is a pretty stable source of investment. You could
Is
also
it
diversify.
investment? Sorry, I've never considered having fideicomisa. I've never considered that it's my investment. I just knew that I need to pay. Obviously, there
Oh
is a
yeah,
purpose for have this fideicomisa, like an real estate. This part I appreciate,
yeah,
but rather than paying yearly fee for fideicomiso. I didn't know that I have any advantages.
Well, there's different types of
Oh, okay.
fideicomisos of bank trust, right? The bank trust you're talking about is the typical trust you need as an expat to acquire land in Mexico
Yeah,
and acquire land
property.
in the beaches, coasts, and the borders. However, there's so other types of investment
Okay.
trusts, right, which you could spend a little money in. I mean, I'm talking about diversifying your portfolio, which are flexible vehicles for you to participate in real estate investments. For instance, here in Mexico, and
Hmm.
some investment opportunities are growing a lot in Mexico. Of course, this is not. I'm not a financial professional advisor, so I'm just talking about
Yeah.
general options I've seen my clients done before. And regarding Kempton, this UK financial institution, they actually provide services for Mexican residents and Latin American residents who wish to invest in accounts outside of Latin America, as so to minimize risk and diversify their earnings and their income. Because, some clients may be a bit paranoid in having all their money set up just in a Mexican bank, right? So Mexican banks, for instance, just cover you up to, it is like $150,000, right? That's American dollars, 150,000 American dollars. So if you have earnings or savings in your bank account, that's the maximum amount Mexican government is going to cover you if the bank goes to bankrupt, if the
The
bank
same
fails.
as in Canada, just speaking about Canadian dollars.
Oh, the same economic security. Oh, okay. So yes, so if you have more than that, I will highly recommend you to diversify your portfolio. And yes, in Mexico there are different types of investment opportunities you can seek. And the just I named a few, but there's more, right? And obviously, always seek legal and financial advice prior to making a big investment, right? Never do it on a rush. Always take your time, consider your options, and yes, I mean, 1 hour consultation with a professional, I think, is way better worth than just taking a decision on your own and maybe leave it up to luck, right?
Tell me, please, like Outbound Mexico can advise on these
Yeah.
particular questions as well and
Yes.
connect with a
Yes.
financial advisor. Yes?
Exactly. So we can give legal advice for you to have the legal certainty in which activities you're engaging in, so that everything is legal and that everything is done in a correct way. And secondly, that we can connect you with in financial advisors and financial investment options.
Great. Thank you very much. I learned
You're
a
welcome.
lot. And I can tell you that I'm more confident now in Mexico future and Mexico economy. No, seriously, when I see kind of new generation of Mexican professionals, active, really patriots of the country who really want to bring own country on the different level and working hard to achieve it. It's not just words. I know that you guys are very active in many different fields. Like I feel really good personally as expat in Mexico. And just small side question, we are out of time. I was expecting personally, it's not question to you, but maybe
Yeah.
you know, about digital nomad specific visa coming from the Mexican government, like in other countries it was issued.
Yeah.
Obviously, digital nomads as of today, last years, coming and they can get temporary residence visa, and it's kind of the same. But why Mexico didn't issue this specific visa, digital nomad visa, to attract more, entrepreneurs and actually digital nomads, maybe with to compete with Costa Rica, I would say Colombia and other countries in this regard.
Well, I think we sort of have it, right? I mean, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but we sort of have a digital nomad visa. And I think it's just the temporary resident visa via income, monthly income, economic criteria. So if you have a US employer, with a certain level of monthly income, you can apply for a temporary residency here
Maybe
in
it's just
Mexico.
better to rename it, because when I'm
Yeah.
looking on statistics and in all digital nomad like sources, they speak about digital nomad visas, this, and kind of know Mexico. And I know that exists in Mexico, but because it's officially doesn't have this name coming under kind of general umbrella, it's kind of out of the touch or knowledge of many people. But I would like for all of our listeners who might be not familiar with the topic to know that digital nomad visa, remote work visa, retirees visa, and many other kind of visa exist in Mexican immigration law, and actually people can apply. And if they have any general questions, they can connect with me. If they have specific question, they can connect with Outbound Mexico. Thank you very much. It was very informative, very inspiring, and I believe that many listeners will value your information and will learn a lot, and actually will be familiar with new concept of a membership legal shield program, and with new outstanding legal company in Mexico, Outbound Mexico.